Welcome to the Postal Mate webinar. International regulation changes. It's a mad, mad world. And it is. Not only is it crazy times we're living in, but the international stuff that we're going through today is a little bit crazy. But we're going to start off, as I promised, with COVID-19 restrictions, which is temporary, but we need to go through this. So COVID-19 restrictions in particular are affecting USPS. And Indicia is doing a pretty good job of not producing labels when COVID-19 doesn't allow for your package or mail to be delivered to that country. There are there was a little over 120 countries at one point that did not accept mail packages. That's a third of the world. I think we're down in the 90s right now, but that's still that's still a quarter of the world is not accepting mail packages right now. So if you get to the end of a mail shipment and it says it's not available, it's likely why. If you go to USPS.com and just scroll down a little bit, right in the center towards the bottom, it has a little button to click on international restrictions from the COVID-19, and it'll list the countries. I cannot tell you which countries are and are not affected. I will tell you that Central and South America and Africa are particularly affected by it right now. And then Europe is starting to come off the restricted list, and you're able to get more packages into Europe where a few weeks ago you could not. So if you're finding that you're having trouble sending USPS packages to those countries, that might be why. Also, you should know with all carriers, the idea of getting a signature upon delivery during COVID-19 is slim to none. So most countries, that is a no. They are going for completely contactless delivery. So that does put a little bit more risk on you with the package, just so you're aware of that. If you're sending something kind of high value or that your customer's concerned about, there's not a lot you can offer them. You can't guarantee a signature. You can't, it's a little bit more at risk than normal. So, yeah, so just so you know, and those countries often they can't ship out either or mail out by mail. Now, having said that, and by the way, in some countries, the post office, their local post office is just completely shut down. Like there's nothing moving. Now, just because the post office in their country is not working or accepting mail does not mean that DHL, FedEx, and UPS cannot get it there. Oftentimes they still can. There's very few countries that are shut down from UPS, FedEx, and DHL. So that is an alternative, albeit an expensive, but perhaps better alternative during these times. All right. So the first thing we're going to get into is, the two changes that are affecting is USMCA and BIS. USMCA affects your shipments to Mexico and Canada. BIS affects China, Russia, and Venezuela. We will start off with the easy one. And this is, trust me on this, this was a complicated webinar to put together. My goal is to get you the information you need for 99.9% of your shipments and don't feed you a lot of stuff you don't need to know, okay? So that's where we're going today. So these changes affect all international carriers, DHL, FedEx, UPS, and USPS Indicia. So these are universal changes. It has nothing to do with carrier. They are not carrier specific. So if this change happens for DHL, it's also true for FedEx, for UPS, and for mail, okay? So the USMCA is the new NAFTA. You've probably heard of NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. That was discontinued, and the USMCA, United States, Mexico, Canada Agreement, is in its place. Oddly enough, the USMCA has a different name in Canada and a different name in Mexico, whereas NAFTA was universal. In Mexico, M is first, Mexico's first, of course, and in Canada, the C is first, Canada. So go figure. But this is an optional program. It's always been an optional program. The NAFTA, now USMCA, allows for people and companies to send things to Canada or to Mexico from the United States at a lower duty and tax rate. And that's to encourage traffic between package traffic between and forgot the word I was looking for, but stuff going over the border between our countries. So um, it's a good thing, but typically it's not going to be something you're going to be asked to do by your customer. It's not something you're going to want to do on your own. If your customer doesn't request it, then you probably should not invoke the USMCA rules. There are some basics to be worth your while. I want to say there's a minimum of $1,000 in value to fill out all the forms and stuff, and generally going to be commercial in nature. Again, something you're probably, if you haven't dealt with NAFTA in the past, you probably won't deal with USMCA in the future. I would say the typical store might run across this once every 10 or 15 years. Now, there are exceptions to this. We have border stores along the Mexico border or along the Canadian border, or just stores that do a lot of international stuff to those two countries that do deal with this. Though we're not going to address your needs in this webinar because that's the minority, that's the far and few between. We're going to talk to the bulk of you and give you the information you need. So what do we need to know about this? Well, here's the important one. This affects all of you for all of your shipments to Canada and to Mexico. And it's called de minimis. De minimis. De minimis is for everyone. So all of the packages you ship to Canada and to Mexico are going to have this rule apply. And it's the threshold or when duties and taxes will be assessed on your package. So you're sending a birthday gift for Aunt Sally to Canada, or a anniversary gift to John in Mexico. These rules will apply to your package. And it could be a business item, but it could be personal too. So it doesn't have to be just personal. And so this is where you won't have any duties or assessments on it. So for Canada, it's in Canadian dollars. And so you have to do the exchange rate. And I'll just give you a hint today, but I want you to be aware the Canadian exchange rate with US fluctuates quite a bit through the years. So you want to keep an eye on this. So for tax-free, and tax and duties are different things. They're all money going out, right? But they are different things. Duty is dependent on, duty is for the contents, and taxes tax, tax. Okay. So for Canada, tax will not apply for $40 Canadian, which right now is just a hair under $30 US. And for no duty to apply, they will allow up to $150. So if you had a package that was $100 in value Canadian going to Canada, tax would apply for the $60 Canadian, between 40 and 100, but duty would not apply because it hasn't reached over $150 in value for duty. Tax is usually the small amount, and duties are usually the big amount applied. So there might be $3 in tax and $60 in duty on a $180 shipment or something. So so that's kind of the idea to keep in mind. So in a perfect world, your shipments to Canada are going to be under $30 all the time, and then your customer doesn't have to worry about duties or taxes. Mexico, same thing applies, except Mexico uses the US dollar, so you don't have to do a conversion thing, which is kind of cool. Mexico, they allow $50 free for taxes and up to $117 for duties. Interestingly, as I got into this, while these aren't very far off from each other, you might wonder, how much does the United States allow in before they start applying things from Mexico and from Canada? You don't need to know this, but it's just an interesting trivia. The United States is very generous. We allow $800 of something to come into the United States before duties and taxes apply. So we're more generous on this than Canada or Mexico. But on the other hand, in fairness, we're bigger consumers and we send more stuff out. So whatever. So this is the rule of thumb. Your cheat sheet is going to have this handy, and you're going to want to use it frequently when you're sending to Canada or Mexico, and make sure that your customers know this. All right. For most stores, like I said, it's unlikely you'll be asked to invoke the USMCA. The good news is if you did used to do the NAFTA on occasion, no certificate of origin is required now for the new USMCA. But remember, the de minimis is the one that affects you. You don't have to remember the words de minimis. You just have to remember to keep it under $30 for Canada and keep it under $50 for Mexico, and you're doing good. Most of us, our shipments to Canada and Mexico are gifts, or sometimes they're return for repair. Make sure to specify that on the customs form. But yeah, so that's kind of where you want to go with that. Now, the next topic we're going to talk about is probably why you logged in to this webinar, and you've been getting a lot of emails on this. And there is some question about, these were supposed to have taken effect on June 29th. There's been some delay in some of this, but I'm going to teach it all to you without delay because it's very confusing what's been delayed and what's not. So we're just going to assume the correct behavior from this point forward. And this is the BIS, which is the Bureau of Industry and Security. Way more information than you already needed to know. But this affects your shipments to Russia, to China, and to Venezuela. So making it clear, Russia has always been a pill, or the last several years has been a pill to ship to. And so we don't typically send too much to Russia. In fact, sending to a person in Russia is almost impossible. So, and sending to a business in Russia is difficult at best. Sending to Venezuela is not even available via UPS and FedEx. Only DHL and Post Office will send to Venezuela. So these rules apply to all of the carriers. And the Bureau of Industry and Security is basically trying to keep track of all of the shipments with merchandise of a certain nature going to these countries. So basically, in layman's terms, is these countries are naughty and the US wants to keep track of what's going to those countries. It's kind of the easy way to do it. All right. So you might be going, help. What do I do? So I'm going to give you guidelines for almost all stores, for almost all shipments. This is going to help you with 99.9% of your shipments. So we're first going to go through with Russia. First of all, you need to know that documents are still okay. Okay, these rules do not apply to documents. This is goods only. When you're sending, and here's the key word, think technology. There is a list. It's called the Commerce Control List of things that you have to now complete an EEI filing for. And that list of things is humongous. To give you an idea, and I did try to get more information on it, but to give you an idea, just the index for the list of things, the index is 78 pages long. The entire booklet is written in legalese, so it's really difficult. But here's what you need to know. It is focused very heavily on military use and manufacturing, not on personal use. So that'll tell you something. The key word for you to remember is technology. If the item you're sending is technology, that should raise a red flag for you. And now I'll back that up with a little bit more information. Low-level technology is okay. Non-low level is not. So where's that line? And I don't know where that line is because the government hasn't said where that line is. Sorry. But I can tell you this, an example of low-level technology, a battery-operated fan, a razor, a blender, a toaster, that's low-level technology. But technology can be anything with a chip in it, to anything that plugs in, to anything that turns on, that any kind of information that is like software, all of that is considered technology. So a cell phone, a laptop, I would consider that technology. I don't know if a personal one going to those countries is considered something that's going to be an EEI, but I'm going to assume it is. An EEI, electronic export information, is a filing, not a form. It's not something that we can present to you in Postal Mate. You can fill in all the little lines and we can send it off for you. It doesn't work that way. You have to go to a government website. You have to log in with your credentials. You have to fill out the information, including an EIN, which is a number that your customer has to provide you. And after you fill everything in, you get basically a confirmation number called an ITN. This is way more than most of you want to do, and that's fair. Here's the good news. All of the carriers, except Post Office, will do this filing for you for a small fee. And when I say small, I want to say it runs between $12.50 to $15. And of course, you pass that fee on to your customer. So if you find yourself in a position where you need to file an EEI, and most of us run into that on occasion, then let the carrier do it for you and let the carrier walk you through it. You're still going to have to get a lot of information from your customer, but unless you do a lot of these, it's not worth your time and effort to learn how to complete an EEI filing on your own. You'll learn how to do one. It'll take you way too much time. You'll do it. By the time the next one comes around, you will have forgotten how to do it, or they will have changed something. So my recommendation is to let the carrier help you. For all other things going to Russia and the other countries, you are required to let customs know that the item is not going to require an EEI on the customs form. And you do that by putting the words EAR, that's like an ear, 99, just like I have on the screen. And that has to be done by you. There's not going to be any checkbox in Postalmate. And this is only for Russia, China, and Venezuela. Okay, that's all. So if you are sending things that you know are not going to be technology, are not going to be on that CCL, like we have here, a woman's silk blouse, a birthday card, and metal tweezers. That's all golden. You need to have EAR99 on the description line on after every item. That needs to become habit. The cheat sheet we're giving you today has this so that you can pull it out and remember it when time comes. This should then go through customs without any issues. So the EEI filing in the past has only been required for certain restricted countries like Syria or something, or when the value is over $2,500. With Russia, Venezuela, and China, the value could be $20, but if it's technology, it's going to need one. So old rules don't apply on this. So just remember, if it's not technology, you're golden. Be sure and put EAR99 on each line, okay? Even for the birthday card, even for silly things like that, okay? Do it. All right, this is Russia. Now we're going, I want to talk to you a little bit about sending Russia. So I'm going to ask you to look at the pictures over on the left on the screen, and I want you to tell me, and you can type it in or you can just think about it in your own mind. What item, there is, I will give you a hint. There is only one item, one in that picture that can be actually allowed to be shipped to Russia. Do you know what one item it is? So we see costume jewelry, a chocolate bar, cosmetics, and toys. But one item in that picture is allowed to be shipped to Russia, and every other item in that on the screen is not allowed to be shipped to Russia. Okay, so what can be shipped? Okay, time's up. Darren, you win. You are the only one who got it. Very good. He should be gloating and puffing up his chest right now. The only thing on the screen that can be shipped is the cardboard box. That's it. Everything else is prohibited to Russia. I kid you not. So this is nothing to do with the rules. This is old rules, but this is how restrictive Russia is. So I wanted to bring that up. This is the list that I was able to get, and I don't know if it's complete or not, but one of the carriers provided this of things that you cannot ship to Russia right now. And I highlighted in orange the things that I know from my own experience running my own stores. These are things we shipped all the time to places: coffee, cologne, CDs, cosmetics, cotton, eyeglasses, toys, personal effects, phones. Those things, costume jewelry, plastic jewelry, you cannot send. So anyway, just wanted you to have an idea, because it's good to know. You probably don't get very many requests for going to Russia, but just know that you almost can't send anything personal. Okay. So now let's talk about China. And I've had the question come up, is Hong Kong included in China? Not at this time, to my knowledge. Hong Kong, when we're sending to Hong Kong, we actually select Hong Kong as the country and Hong Kong as the city. Now, obviously, if you're staying with current with world politics, China is trying to change that rapidly right now and assimilate Hong Kong as part of China. So that could change, but right now we're talking about the country of China when you select the country of China. Folks, I've looked at, kind of where people ship, and most of you don't ship hardly anything to Russia, nothing to Venezuela, but almost all of you send to China. So this is the one we're going to really focus on. And you need to know the basic rules. And they're the same as Russia, except we don't have that ridiculous long list of things you can't send. You can send toys to China, for example. But again, if it's technology, you're probably going to want to call the carrier and see if you need to do an EEI filing. Now, folks, just because your customer wants to send a cell phone to China, if it's not something you're comfortable with and you don't want to do it, you can send them directly to DHL.com or the FedEx office store or somewhere else. Don't, say, that's going to require a filing that I'm not familiar with, and I want your business, but I want you to get it there in a proper, and I'm doing, present it as though you're going above and beyond giving them extra service by not giving them service. It's okay to say, I can't do that. Or that's going to require something I'm not as familiar with, and I would rather that you get it done right the first time and go to FedEx office. If that's how you are and the position you're in, by all means do that, and tell them you really want to have their business next time, but you also want them to get the best service. And for this particular shipment, you would feel more comfortable if they went to FedEx office or whatever. If it's something you want to handle and you have no problem calling the carrier and saying, I need to file an EEI for the shipment going to China, it has a cell phone or it has a laptop in it, then absolutely do that. No problem. And they will direct you and they will help you to know what you need and give you step-by-steps. Be sure and tell them that you're designating the carrier. You want the carrier to file the EEI on your behalf so that they know what you're asking for. All the carriers except Post Office do this for you. So if you get somebody new on the other end of the phone that doesn't quite know what they're doing, escalate it. Say, can I talk to a more experienced person or a supervisor? So sometimes we have to do that, right? So again, make sure that if it's not a technology type item that you're typing in or handwriting EAR99 on each line of the customs form where you have a description. And then everything else is as normal. So Venezuela, same rule. And again, documents are okay for all these countries. You don't have to have EAR99 on documents. So just on contents. And PostalMate will give you a pop-up and it will tell you that, hey, you may need an EII for this or have to put EAR99. It won't force you to do it. It won't know if you've done it. But we thought, gosh, these rules are so restrictive. We want to remind you to do it. We don't like putting pop-ups in PostalMate. Many of you are what I call power users, and you have 6, 80, 100 packages a day. You don't need pop-ups interrupting you all the time. Many of you are small mom and pops, and you don't do too many of these, and you want pop-ups coming up to help remind you. So we try to find that balance in between, but we thought, especially with this being new, we would give you that pop-up. And I'll show you what that looks like. All right. Again, in PostalMate, you're going to have that EAR99. It's going to look like that. Hopefully that's big enough that you can all see it. So the question is all technology commerce control listed? And no, but a lot of it is. So think low technology is okay, calculator. High technology, mid-level technology, probably you need to ask the carrier. And by the way, the idea that the carrier's going to have a clear picture of this, we've gotten our best information from DHL so far. but even they're struggling to understand these rules. Mind you, the carriers didn't write these rules, folks. The government did. And the government wrote them in such a way, like they do a lot of things, is it's in legalese and it's very vague and difficult to understand. And so unless you're a huge exporter, many of these rules don't make sense because they're really targeting the bigger exporters. They should have probably just exempted all the small people, but they didn't. And so for the common person, this is really cumbersome. And for DHL's level that deal with consumers, and we are, I'll lump us in there, we're retail establishments, but we still are consumer based as opposed to we don't send a pallet to China. It's difficult for their group to understand what's going on. And there still seems to be some fluidity in the things, the rules changing and when these do apply. So again, the date these were all supposed to start was June 29th. We're going to behave as though they all did. They have put off some of these rules now until September, but it's hard to digest which they have put off and which they haven't. There's no harm in adhering to all the rules now. That's erring on the side of caution. All right, so some of the terms, and boy, there's a lot of terms. This is, I call it alphabet soup, and we're not going to go through all these. The cheat sheet that we're going to give you has all of these, but just so you have the information and know the alphabet soup, this is kind of what we're looking at, what we're faced with. So speaking of cheat sheet, it is cheat sheet time. On your dashboard for the webinar is a handout section, and you can click that and get that handout. If you're watching this as a recording, and many of you will, you can get the cheat sheet directly from our website in the Help Center by typing in cheat sheet or international rules change. Do not email me. I don't have it, and I won't email it to you. I'll tell you to go to the website. Do not email our support department and ask them for it. They're going to email you back and tell you to go to our website. That's where these are stored and located, and that's where you can get yours. Would a thermometer be considered low tech? Here's what I would suggest. If it's a thermometer for food or for person, I would say yes. If it's a thermometer for thermonuclear equipment, I would say no. Is that good? Okay. And so there's our website. Here's, you type in international rule change, it pops right up. I even typed in cheat sheet and it popped right up. So that's where you want to go for that. So in summary, to keep this short, because you really need to know only what you need to know to do business, right? Canada and Mexico, try to keep it at under $30 for Canada and under $50 for Mexico. China, Russia, Venezuela, no technology, great. Make sure to put EAR99 on each line. Technology, call the carrier and ask them questions. Do I need to file an EEI? If so, can you help me with that? If not, okay, then you go back and you type in EAR99. So that's the absolute bottom line of the entire webinar. There it is. Now, you have questions. We all have questions. Before we go forward with questions, and I'll let you start typing them in, I want to show you something in PostalMate. When you're processing an international shipment in PostalMate, and maybe it does need an EEI, did you know that you can still process the transaction through PostalMate without getting a label and do the label on DHL.com, FedEx.com, or wherever? Watch what happens here. Let's say I've got a shipment to China that is technology and it's going to require an EEI filing. So I know I can't get a label through PostalMate through FedEx or UPS. You might be able to get it through DHL, but I'm still going to need an EEI filing. So when I click on this, and let's say I want to send it FedEx, there's a little checkbox here that many of you have never noticed. It's right up here. It says process offline. If you do this, you will not get a ramp ready label. However, it will charge $128.75 to your customer. It will take it over to the Cashmate like normal, and you'll charge your customer as normal, and then you process it the different way at FedEx.com or with a way bill or however it is you want to do it. In fact, you can even have Postalmate ask you to enter the way bill number or tracking number. So that button has been there, that little checkbox has been there for years and years and years, but you maybe never noticed. And it's for all carriers. You can see that I have not chosen a carrier yet. By the way, I want you to notice something. Do you see UPS on the same screen as FedEx on my screen? Did you know that you can now have UPS show on the same screen as other carriers now? That's brand new as of the last update. If you didn't know that, you didn't read the last update guide. UPS has changed their mind on that rule. And so you can now have UPS share the same screen as FedEx and other carriers. All right, that's all I have on that. Excuse me, water time. I'm going to get to some questions now, and I'm sure you have plenty of them. So type them in. To be clear, the EAR 99 tag is only required for each line item, China, Russia, and Venezuela. That is correct. If it's going to Japan, if it's going to Mexico, if it's going to Costa Rica, if it's going to France, it does not need to say EAR 99. Okay? Thank you. That's a great question. Yes, we only have to ship under that amount for Canada and Mexico to avoid duties and taxes. Yes, if you want to ship something that's $1,500 to Canada and Mexico, do it. Absolutely. The $30 for Canada and the $50 for Mexico is only to avoid duties and taxes. You can still ship whatever value you want there. So it's not a restriction, it's a benefit. Okay. So I'm trying to help you. You have that customer that comes, they're sending a birthday gift and they're like, oh, I have some blue jeans in there and that's $25 and I have this and that's $10 and now you get $35 going to Canada. And you're probably going to say something like, can we lower it a little bit? Because if we can get it under $30, there probably won't be any duties and taxes. Your customer will worship the ground that you lay on to avoid that because it's really nice for them not to have to deal with that. Do any viewers utilize, okay, that's a good question, Raj. Let me ask, have any of you ever used the former NAFTA for a customer? And I just like a yes. So don't tell me no's, just tell me yeses so I can get an idea of if we've had very many people do that. It doesn't happen very often. I've got 2 already. So it's not often, but it does happen. Now I've got 3. Lee, it figures it would be you. You've done one oddity of everything in your life. I'm sure you have. Okay. So Julie doesn't, yes, but not frequent. All right. So I'm going to get to questions now again. And I'm sorry, I have to scroll up and through these questions. It's a little bit of a pill. We recently returned a digital thermometer for a customer bought on Amazon and returning to the seller in China and had to change the contents from digital thermometer to thermometer before it would go through. The first time it was returned to our client and the second time it seems to have gone through okay. That's great because digital insinuates that it is technology, right? And so again, thermometer for personal use. Thermometer for household refrigerator, because if you just say for a refrigerator, well, now we could be talking a refrigerated unit in a cargo ship or in a warehouse or something like that. So you can, heck, refrigerated nuclear areas, they have to keep that stuff cool. So you can see that it can get crazy. How do we get the carriers to file the EEI for us? I was told by Riley that the only way to do it is to use their website. Is this right? No, my understanding is you can call all 3 of the main carriers and have them help you with an EEI. I don't know any tricks to it because it's been many years since I've done it, about 10 years to be exact. So, but do contact the carriers. Make sure when you contact the carriers for UPS and FedEx that you are talking to their international department. Their regular department is going to have no clue what you're talking about. Should the customer know that we can't ship these items to that country? um, I would say most of them, yes. And here's why. Um, a lot of for the Amazon return, the answer is no. But a lot of shipments that we do to China, to Russia, to Venezuela are from people that are from that area. And believe me, this kind of information or stuff travels through those communities quickly, and so they know. So I'll backtrack and say maybe 50-50, because Amazon shipments returns, let's face it, if people are buying stuff and they have to return it to China, they should have checked their return policy first, because it's really difficult to return to China. How do you charge the duty? You don't charge the duty. Um, the receiver should be paying the duties and taxes for all the carriers. If the receiver doesn't pay, then whoever is on the return address of the label, which should be your customer, is the next person to be billed. Can the carrier come back and bill your store? Yes, technically they can, but they're supposed to try to get the money from the receiver first and from the sender second. Some of the carriers promise they won't come after the stores, and some of the carriers are kind of wishy-washy about it. The best carrier that I think the best carrier that won't come after your store is DHL. I think they're pretty good about not coming after your store for that. If they do, and you bring it to their attention, they usually will get rid of that. But so duties and taxes, and there is no magic tool that I'm aware of that can help you decide how much the duties and taxes will be, because honestly, it's up to the person at the duties and taxes control center on that particular day. And if they had a bad night last night, duties and taxes might be a lot higher than if they had a good night last night. So it kind of works that way for a lot of countries. Okay, let's see. When I process international package and print the commercial invoice, it prints so many pages. It should print 4 pages. The commercial invoice should be 4 pages. The last one is for you, your store, or your customer. 3 pages have to go with the parcel. Many times FedEx International shows delivery time, verify with carrier, but I go to FedEx.com and it shows delivery time. The city, state, and zip is the same as I put in at FedEx.com. So why does it not show the time with FedEx? So you'll notice on my screen right now, it says verify with carrier. So that's what she's talking about. From my situation right now, it's because I'm on the test server, but you're not on test server. So why is it happening on yours? For all the carriers, the API, that's the talking back and forth, and the server that is provided by the carrier that we use for third-party software is different from the one they use at FedEx.com, UPS.com, DHL.com. It requires a different set of information. We see that very frequently with DHL. With DHL, the address that you put in Postalmate has to be more specific than if you do it at DHL.com. That's just the API server that they have. I can't change that. I'm hoping one day that they'll change that. But right now, for example, postal codes. If there is a space or a dash or something in a postal code in the foreign country that they use, like the UK, and you don't put it in Postalmate, it won't give you a label. If you did it at DHL.com, it will give you a label. So that's the kind of thing that we're dealt with. So sometimes you'll get an error and it'll say something about postal code error. It's not necessarily that the postal code is wrong, it's that things aren't matching up in their API. So they basically have a list of cities and how they like them spelled, and a list of postal codes that they attach to those. And if you put yours in and you spell your city differently, or you put the word city afterwards, and that's not the way to do it, like Hong Kong City, Hong Kong, no, it's just Hong Kong, Hong Kong. And so any alteration to that will give you that type of an error. Okay. Will Postalmate have a place for us to program in the fee for the EEI? No. I highly recommend that you create a button in Cashmate for that. And it can be on your last page and just call it EEI. And I would say $20 or $25 is probably an appropriate fee for that. Because it's going to cost you $12.50 to $15 from the carrier. And let's face it, you're doing a little extra work. Now, don't go crazy. And by the way, with DHL, all the carriers are DHL, you are not allowed to charge more than DHL.com published price for a shipment, but it does not restrict you from charging more for the EEI. Okay. Many times. Okay, that's fine. How do you get the handouts that I was referencing on on your webinar dashboard? There's a button that says handouts, and so if you go there, you'll see the cheat sheet. If you can't find it there, then go to our website and type in the word cheat sheet in the help center. And that help center, by the way, is magic. It has so much information. So if you run into a problem, and by the way, we have seen lots of issues lately with indicia. So please, if you can't process indicia, it might be indicia that's having trouble. They have been having a lot of trouble lately. FedEx International just charged me for a package gone to Thailand and didn't deliver back in April. And I just got billed for duties and tax for $63. So FedEx should have billed the recipient first. And if the recipient didn't pay, they should have billed the sender or the return address on, and the return address for international is always your customer. It's never your store. So the return address on the label. You can dispute that with FedEx. They may remove that charge. So please make that effort. Okay, so great question, Curtis. You are awesome. Thank you. Let's say that you have, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to process this offline. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, I know I'm lying. Okay. I'm making up a phone number too. Don't make up phone numbers. Okay. Okay, so here's that pop-up that we warned you would come up for China, Venezuela, and Russia. And it's not stopping you from shipping it. It's just saying, do you want more information? And if you do, it's going to give you a lot of mumbo jumbo. Or do you don't want more information? And you can just press no and continue, okay? This is a gift, one item. I'm just going to make this really quickly. Yeah, like anything is really made here. Ooh, what do I have to put here, guys? EAR99. Okay, got that. Checkbox. Next. I don't think you have to put EAR99 here, but you know what? It never hurts, right? Okay, so once we get that to go up, okay, and this is because I'm on test servers, so I apologize for that. So let's just say that the whole transaction went through. We're just going to assume it did. And I'll pull up CashMate here. Okay. I'm going to recall a shipment that I have already on here so that you can, come on. Okay, that looks like a shipment. No, that looks like a shipment. Okay, so there's a shipment. But let's say the tracking number was not on here. How do you get it on there? We have this little memo button. And if you all have the memo button, just like I do, but somebody in the past may have hidden it or taken it off your main screen or put it on one of these other tabs, but you have a memo key. And you can click on that and it allows you to type in, and you can put in okay, and it will appear on the receipt. Look at that. Ta-da! You could also use a barcode scanner. So you could type tracking number, or you don't have to type in tracking number. Just hit the barcode scanner and it'll go bleep and it'll all enter in there. So just like magic when you process offline. Should the EEI filing be complete before we accept the package? The EEI filing should certainly be complete before you give the package to the carrier. but you can certainly hold the package in your store while the EEI filing is taking place, making sure you have all the contact information from your customer in case there's a hiccup and you can't get it done. You need to be able to contact them and have them come pick it up. In reality, while you're doing the EEI, you're going to need information from them. They're going to have to get what's called an EIN, an employer identification number. I've given you on the cheat sheet the website to go to get that. That's individual to your customer. It's an IRS website. They have to go to it, plug in their information, and boom, it'll give them an EIN. They have to give you that EIN so that you can give it to the carrier so that they can use that when filing the EEI. Again, Jane, that's correct. If technology item going to countries not Russia, not China, and not Venezuela do not need any EEI. Why put your customer's return address? You don't want it coming back to the store. That's a great question. What you need to be aware of is if you put your store as the return address, then you are liable for duties and taxes. You're accepting liability for duties and taxes. Number two, if that item has a gift exemption, so if it's going to the United Kingdom, for example, and it's a gift, maybe it's a $25 blouse, the gift exemption won't apply because you can't have a gift from a company and your store is a company. Number three, duties and taxes are higher when the item is coming from a business than from a person to most countries. So those are the reasons. And yes, if the item is returned, it will go to your customer, not your store. However, for UPS, FedEx, and DHL, they are not technically allowed to return it without your express permission. They're supposed to contact you and get permission to return it at your expense. If they do not, and they return it anyway, and they bill you, you should be able to dispute that and get that removed from your bill. If you have trouble with that, you need to take it to the department that handles your authorized program. So for UPS, that's the Authorized Shipping Outlet Program, FedEx, the FASC program, and DHL, and they have a new term, so I'm going to be bad and say their old one, which was DHL Authorized Ship Center, but they have a new name for the program, so I'm sorry. Those folks can help you out with that if the billing department cannot. Gina, I don't know. I don't believe it's supposed to be your EIN number. I believe it's supposed to be the customer's since they're going to be the return address on it. Service point. Thank you. Service point. DHL service point. Okay. If we value the items at $30 when it's actually worth $100 and the item gets lost, are we only going to get $30? Yep. You can't insure an item for more than you tell customs it's worth. So if you undervalue things for the purpose of customs, that's a risk you take. There's actually two risks. Number one, that if it's lost or damaged, you won't get the money you expect. And number two, if you undervalue it much and the customs officials looks at it cross-eyed, they're going to put their own value on it and they're probably going to double it. They're going to get mad that you undervalued it. So if it's a pair of jeans and you say it's $25, they'll buy that. But if it's a laptop and you say $25, they're not buying that. They're going to get mad at you for lying. If it's a broken laptop, put in broken laptop. Okay. So no, you cannot process an EEI from PostalMate. It's a filing at a government website, folks. There is no possible way to make PostMate. There's no programming in the world, and I don't say that lightly, that we can do to make the filing happen. It's a government filing. That's kind of like filing for a marriage license. Well, is there a way that you can make PostMate file a marriage license for me? No, you have to submit your blood work and you have to go down there and file it and sign it and everything there. You can't do it electronically. We can't do it. Okay. Sandra, that's not new. You should be able to have the carrier do an EEI filing. I will say that occasionally, and I've experienced this myself, occasionally you get people on the phone at DHL, UPS, or FedEx that don't want to help you with an EEI because it's work, a lot of work on their part. But I have had all major carriers tell us that it is a service they provide, and it's in their service guide. So I'm going to sneeze. That's not a good thing. And I'm not wearing a mask. There's nobody else around me. So sorry. When do these rules go into effect? June 29th. So they're already in effect. I've got an English-only customer in China. China Mail and FedEx the last 60 days are being very difficult with receivers in China, refusing to release and refusing to speak, translate into English. Okay, so sometimes you're going to get a customer who has an address in Chinese or in any other language. And they're going to say, no, the address has to be like this with Chinese characters or whatever language it is. So to accept a package from the United States, the label has to be in English. No accents, no tildes, no foreign characters, no foreign letters. It must be in American English, period. Now, to satisfy your customer, because they can be very insistent, take a blank label, hand it to them, and say, please write the address out here. Put it on the package next to the barcoded label that Postalmate creates. That way, your customer gets his way, and you know that you're abiding by the carrier rules. So you have to go to the carrier to get an EEI. That would be prior to going online to produce your label, because yes, good question again, Curtis. You are batting 1,000 today. So the order of things is customer comes in, they've got a laptop to China. You say, okay, let me get that rate for you. We're going to need to file an EEI. I need to have your phone number, and I'm going to need to get information from you, including an EIN number. And if they have the EIN number, great. If they don't know what that is, you're going to walk them through that. So you run it through Postalmate, you hit that process offline button, and then you take it over to Cashmate. You can do one of two things. You can cash it out, which is probably what I would do, and then call them up with their tracking number later. Or you can put it on hold. But I would want to get the money now. You can always refund the money, but get the money now. Get them locked into that sale because it's a high dollar sale, right? Set the package aside. Now, next step is go get your EEI done. Get that filing done with the carrier. Once that is done, your carrier will come back to you with a number called an ITN. It's like a confirmation number. The confirmation number is needed when you go back to FedEx.com, DHL.com, UPS.com, and complete to get a label. Or if you're filling out the way bill manually, you need that ITN number. That's proof that you've done the EEI filing, and it's a reference so that the customs, whoever is looking at it, can find the EEI filing. So that's the order. So accept the package and money, get the EEI done, go process the package and get a label or a way bill, and then contact your customer to let them know everything is successful, and give them the tracking number, and go ahead and give them the ITN number from the EEI as well. And then if you're a really good store, and I know a lot of you are, you will daily track that package until it's delivered. You should be doing that on international packages of high value, or sent UPS, FedEx, and DHL, because they've spent a lot of money, and on next day errors. That should be just part of your basic daily stuff you do for your customers. Okay. Great question. And I'm sorry, that my program has a list of questions, and then when somebody puts in a new one, it kind of jumps up. So that's why I'm a little bit here. Does an individual have to have an EIN to ship? Yes, even though it's called an employer identification number, an individual Grandma Joan that comes into your store has to do an EIN, get an EIN number to ship that laptop to China. Yes. And you might have a sale, like a eBay sale or something. You may tell them it might be easier to go and try to sell that to somebody who's not in Russia, China, or Venezuela. Good idea, Julie. Entering unsolicited gifts when it's a gift is always a good idea. Japan in particular likes those words, unsolicited gift. Okay. An EIN on your cheat sheet. Here's my cheat sheet here. There's a website there in the alphabet soup decoded right in the center. There's a website, and what I'd recommend is you pull it up on your computers at work and bookmark that so that you always have that available. A lot of you have experiences with packages, so I'm not going to go through all those. Postal Mate will not produce a ramp-ready label when an EEI is required. That's kind of a lie. It won't for UPS and it won't for FedEx. Their servers will not produce a label. It probably will for DHL. It doesn't mean you don't need an EEI. Okay, you're still going to need an EEI. So I believe that DHL servers will still produce that label. So where do you get the cheat sheets? On your dashboard, webinar dashboard, look for handouts. If you don't see it there, go to our website, to the Help Center, and type in cheat sheets. I'll just do that real quickly. Let's see if I can pull it up here. There we go. There's our website, enter Postal Mate. Here's the Help Center right next to Seal. Hi, Seal. And then you just type in cheat. Okay, there it is. Okay. That easy. By the way, this guru, this help center is amazing to get your answers. So yeah, so do you have questions? That's the place to get the answers. Okay, I think I've got through most of the questions. I know I skipped a few in the middle when my screen was jumping up and down. If you still have a question and I did not get to it and you want it answered, email your question to support@pcsynergy.com. I'll monitor the emails for the next 15 or 20 minutes and see if I can email you back your answer, or if it's something I need to call you, I'll call you. So it's been a pleasure to be with you today. I hope that you've gotten the basic information you need. If you need more advanced information, and some of you do, very few of you, but some of you do, I encourage you to sit through some of the carrier webinars on this. I have sat through a couple. They are designed for high volume manufacturing type entities, and they are very involved and complex. And so I tried to really simplify it. We don't need that level of detail for most of us, for most shipments. So I tried to make it as simple as I could for us. So I hope that that worked for you. Again, I hope you have a wonderful week, and we look forward to webinars coming up in August. So take care, everyone. Have a good week. Bye-bye.